Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. And I know this has been a long time coming, but this is finally my complete ranking of all the Assassin's Creed games. Now, there are a few other videos in this series where I have gone into detail about each and every aspect and how these aspects have influenced the rankings. And I have divided them into 3 separate videos based on gameplay, the world and atmosphere, and the story. So if you want to know exactly what the rankings are and exactly where each game is, where they are, then you need to go check out those videos. This is just the final evaluation of all of the games and the final rankings of all of the games. So without much further delay, I would just say, if you end up liking this video, then subscribe to my channel. And well, I am sorry I didn't upload much content, and this time I'm not going to promise much because apparently when I promise things I don't do them. So let's try not doing that. Maybe that will help me actually put content out properly in schedule, whatever, you get the point. Anyway, let's not delay it any further. Let's get on with the video. And at number 12 we have Assassin's Creed Rogue. Now, Assassin's Creed Rogue is the game which pretty much ranks at the bottom of every category for me. Now, when I first played Assassin's Creed Rogue, I enjoyed it. I can't deny that. It's just that on my subsequent playthroughs and as I have played more and more games, it just didn't hold that position. But the one thing that I will do in this video is I'll talk about positives for all of the games. Yes, even Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So yeah, as far as Rogue is concerned, there are a few positives. Like the combat system is obviously derived from Black Flag, and that is decent. Like that's a decent enough combat system, so it's fine. The presentation, once again, like all of its good points are because it's kind of a clone of Black Flag, and Black Flag got those things right. So yeah, it has some good elements, but really not many of them. So it's ranked dead last on my list. Now at number 11, we have Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Now, I said that I will only talk about the positives. So talking about the positives, I would say it has a decent combat system. I guess it did add a little bit to the lore. It did add some things that aren't complete nonsense to the lore, and that I can appreciate. It had some great characters, like Cassandra as a protagonist is one of my favorites now. And other than that, like Brasidas and everyone, they were good. The music is decent. The world, like, it is a little bit repetitive, but then again, it's a representation of ancient Greece. I can't really knock it for that. The world in Assassin's Creed games is generally very good. But yeah, overall it is in the 11th place on this list. Now moving on to number 10, we have Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Now Assassin's Creed Syndicate, if we are to talk about the positives, I would say really good presentation. The story isn't that great, but the presentation, the cutscenes itself, it seems like they were shot really good, and they started this new thing where the cutscene sort of transitions into gameplay, and I really liked that part. So overall, yeah, they did try a few things with the presentation, and I liked that part. And other than that, the stealth in Syndicate is probably one of the best in the series. I haven't rated it as such, because I feel I personally click with the other systems slightly more, but in terms of the options, it gives us a lot of options, and I would say it is polished enough. So yeah, Assassin's Creed Syndicate in terms of stealth was really good. The atmosphere, I love just walking around London, the Victorian era London. So yeah, overall I would say good job with all of those things, but Syndicate is still number 10. Now at number 9, it's another game set in England, which is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now, Valhalla did quite a few things right, so there is actually a lot I can talk about. Those things being story and lore primarily. Now, the story, a lot of people say that the pacing is off, including me. And the pacing is off. The pacing wasn't the best. But the story that it did tell, especially Eivor and Sigurd's story, is one of the best in the franchise. And in terms of lore, it adds a lot to the lore. Yes, it could have done better with its presentation. It could have done better by framing it in a different context. Rather than showing us the fantasy, it could have shown us an actual science fiction Isu storyline, which was based on Norse mythology. clearly they can do that because we had that one cutscene at the end of all the animus anomalies. So clearly that was an option, but they didn't take that option. But even then, it is a decent story. But other than that, really, there is not much to talk about here. So Assassin's Creed Valhalla at number 9. Now at number 8, I have Assassin's Creed 3. Now, talking about the positives, I would say, personally, I love the parkour in Assassin's Creed 3. Now, that doesn't mean the system itself is perfect. It is far from that. There have been some really stupid decisions. For example, combining the high profile and climbing button is something I will never understand. I will never understand why they did that. I will also never understand why they took away the ability to manually grab ledges. It really affects the flow. But in terms of combining the more mechanical nature of the older games and the more animation based nature of the newer games, I feel like this is the best sweet spot. And with a few improvements here and there, I feel like this could be the best parkour system. Other than that, the presentation itself, I felt in the original version, like not the remastered one, because the remastered one was kind of all over the place. The original version had some really decent presentation. Other than that, Assassin's Creed 3 also had one of my favorite combat systems. So yeah, those were some of the positive things that Assassin's Creed 3 brought to the table. But it's still at number 8. Now moving on to number 7, which is Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, Assassin's Creed Origins did a few things right. And among those few things, I would say, one of them is the combat. I really loved the style they were going for in Origins. Yes, some of it was a bit janky. For example, the dodge animation, like Bayek is literally floating above the ground for some points. So yes, it wasn't perfect, but you can, if I had to build on any system, I would take Origin system and build upon that, because that is a system we can improve and make better and, make really good. So in my opinion, yeah, they did a good enough job with the combat. And if there was one other point that I had to talk about, it is the atmosphere that it created. Ancient Egypt is unlike anything else in the franchise in terms of the atmosphere. Like, you really feel that you are there. That's usually, atmosphere is something that Ubisoft games just get it right. Like, usually I have never complained about atmosphere in Ubisoft games, because I just always, wherever there is an open world location, I just feel like, yeah, this feels like a particular place which they wanted to go for. For example, Chicago and Watch Dogs 1 felt like a decent city. Now, Ubisoft usually doesn't miss with that, in my opinion, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park with Origins, again, in my opinion. So yeah, these are some of the positives that Origins had, but at the end of the day, it is still at number 7. Now in the 6th position, I have Assassin's Creed Unity. Now, there are quite a few positives for Unity. Now, I would say this is one of the best, but it is still in the 6th position. That is because in the areas where it does lack, it lacks quite a bit. But some of the notable good things that it does is, in the presentation, the cutscenes are genuinely good. The presentation overall in the game is genuinely good. There's a lot of care that has been put into the game in terms of the general quality and not in terms of the bugs, because clearly that's an issue. That's not the issue I'm talking about here. Other than that, of course, the combat, in my opinion, is probably the best in the series. And other than Origins, if I had to pick one combat system and say that, hey, this is a combat system you can build upon, it would probably be Unity. In terms of stealth, it did a really great job when the game worked, which admittedly wasn't a lot. But in terms of the way it approached stealth, I really like that approach. I think I like Syndicate's hands-on stealth just a little more. But in terms of blending social stealth with normal stealth and giving the tools, I feel like Unity did a lot, and it needs to get that praise. In terms of the world though, the Revolutionary Era Paris, I absolutely love it. I 100% love it. The design was excellent. It really helped the parkour to flow. It helped you give options about where and how you wanted to approach. So yeah, overall the world design, the combat, the stealth, the presentation, all of these are positives for Unity. So yeah, it deserves that number 6 spot. Now at number 5, I have Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Now, among the notable few things that it did good, and boy did it do a lot of things good, the characters was one. The characters were really good. You felt connected to those characters, and at the expense of spoiling a little bit, when a few of those characters don't make it, you actually feel that. The story itself, the way Edward starts off his journey and the way he ends it, the way he grows throughout the story, it is an excellently well written story. The combat system, I mean, making shish kebab out of your enemies, it's a little bit unrealistic. Actually, it's very unrealistic, but it is fun. Okay, it is fun. Same way Odyssey was fun. Like, I also rated Odyssey's combat very high. So it's not really realistic, but it is fun. I can give it that. Now, the other big thing that I want to mention, of course, is the world and the atmosphere that it creates. You know, sailing through the open seas, it feels excellent. But it is complemented by its excellent music. Like, I love the soundtracks in Black Flag. There's a lot of positives to talk about here, and I really need to keep this moving. So yeah, number 5 goes to Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Now at number 4, I have Assassin's Creed Revelations. Now, this is a game which did some things so right, and the other things were decent enough. That is why it is still high on the list. But the things that it did right was the story and lore. I mean, if you want to look at this game and if you want to understand why this game is so high on my list, that's all you need to do. Just look at the story that it is telling, look at what it has added to the lore, and honestly, it went above and beyond what I expected from the game. And I am not going to say anything else about this game because I do intend to play it on my channel. Unlike Black Flag, this is actually pending. So I'm not going to say anything more. I love this game. I love everything about it. But I just love the other 3 games even more. So at number 4, Assassin's Creed Revelations. Now moving on to number 3, and this is among the top 3, and this is probably the game that surprised me the most. It is Assassin's Creed, the original Assassin's Creed. Now, if you have been on my channel for a long time, you know the video that I made in 2020 where I ranked all of the Assassin's Creed games. It was like a 1 hour long video. In that one, Assassin's Creed was at the bottom. It was dead last. And that was because when I first played the game, I didn't actually play it recently, and when I first played the game, I didn't really understand what the game was going for. I didn't really care about the game. I didn't understand what it was trying to tell me. But when I recently played Assassin's Creed now, and when I recently replayed the whole game and really understood what the game is, honestly, it is at third, but that is because some of the elements in the game haven't aged well. Because otherwise, this is now probably my favorite game of all time. Like, for a long time, my favorite game was Need for Speed Most Wanted. That was the game that really, turned me into a person who plays video games. After that, the biggest shift that I have had while playing a game is probably this game. And I mean, I can't list all the positives. There are so many of them. You take the characters, you take the way the missions were designed, you take the stealth, the way stealth works in this game, the parkour, the world, the atmosphere, everything is on point with this game. Everything is excellent with this game. And honestly, this is a game like no other. Like, there is no other game even in this franchise that is quite like Assassin's Creed. And if you haven't played it, then please go play it. Like, yes, I could tell you, go watch it on my channel. No, don't do that. Play this game. You need to play this game to really understand what this game is and what Assassin's Creed was. So yeah, this is now in my top 3 and it takes the 3rd spot. Now, moving down from the top spot is Assassin's Creed Brotherhood at the number 2 spot. Now, Brotherhood last time was first, and this time, after replaying it and after playing the other games, there were a few things that I realized that it doesn't quite do well. But here, of course, we are talking about the positives. So, in terms of the positives, Brotherhood added a lot to the lore. It had excellent characters. The parkour was obviously improved. The stealth, not so much, but still decent. The world was good. The atmosphere was good. Like, pretty much everything. This is a well-rounded Assassin's Creed game. Like, a lot of the things, they are not the best, but they are really good. So, as a all well-rounded experience, if I had to recommend you a game which I would say is the best Assassin's Creed game in terms of all its elements, I would say Brotherhood. But it's not enough to give itself the number one spot, and the number one spot goes to Assassin's Creed 2. Like, yeah, at this point you could say it's a bit of a cliche that Assassin's Creed 2 is taking a top spot. Like, could you be more biased? Okay, fine, I am a little biased because I love this game, but it has its flaws, and since it's at the top spot, it's it's kind of my duty to tell you about those flaws. One of the biggest flaws is the pacing of this story, and the big problem I had with the pacing is that towards the end, when you go back to Florence and when you have to, okay, I'm not going to spoil everything because again, you need to play this game. So when you go back to Florence and there is this sequence where you have to suddenly kill 9 people to progress, and the story just comes to a grinding halt there. And to me, that is a huge negative. Like, at that point, the story was flowing fine, everything is going fine, I love everything that is going on, and suddenly the story just stops. That honestly dragged down the game a lot for me. But other than that, it is good at pretty much everything. Like, other than Brotherhood, this is probably the most well-rounded game I can recommend to you. It has its issues. For example, I never really liked the combat in the older games. I just don't like them. It's not the kind of thing that really appeals to me. So the same problem really affects Assassin's Creed 2 as well. And that is honestly the only category where I did rate it very low. Other than that, it's pretty much at the top at everything. So yeah, Assassin's Creed 2 still stands as one of my favorite Assassin's Creed games. Honestly, the top 3 can be interchanged. Honestly, the top 5 can be interchanged, to be fair. And well, that's that. That's my ranking of all the Assassin's Creed games. Though, do let me know down in the comments below what do you guys think about this list. And if you want to check out the entire list, it should be on your screen right now. Pause it if you want to see it. So yeah, that's the whole list. And as I've said before, if you want to get a more detailed perspective, I have 3 other videos where I have specifically discussed the story, lore, characters, presentation, the parkour, combat, stealth, mission design, all of those as separate things, and I've ranked them separately in every single video. So if you want to see all of that, the 3 videos, the playlist for those 3 videos will be linked down in the description below, and probably in a pinned comment. I don't know, I'll see what happens. So yeah, I will do that, and do let me know once again down in the comments below, what do you guys think? What would your list be like even if it's not the all 12 games, like just the top 5. So yeah, do let me know all of that down in the comments below. Like the video if you like it, and do subscribe to my channel for more content. And all that said, I will leave you guys in peace.